Now let's turn our attention to Jigawa State, where more than 500 houses are said to be under threat of collapse in Malamadori local government area of the state, following days of heavy rainfall and the overflow of the Chumbali Pond. Stagnant water has continued to weaken homes, leaving residents in fear of further damage if the rains persist. Governor Umar Namadi, who visited this area to assess the situation, directed engineers and emergency officials to provide immediate support and design a lasting solution to the flooding. Jigawa is among the 11 states listed by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency to experience severe rainfall and flooding this year. Now, experts warn that unless long-term drainage and water management systems are put in place, thousands of households in Jigawa and other flood-prone states could remain at risk year after year.
And I've given them an instruction that within the next 1 week, I need to have a design and the costing of how we can treat this water and ensure that we have saved these people. Now, the way it is, over 500 houses are at risk, and we want to salvage this situation. And as a government, as a responsible government, we'll do everything possible to ensure that this situation is salvaged within the next few days, inshallah. So the design will come and the costing will come, and then we'll start the work immediately. Malamadori, it has been a long outstanding issue for a long period of time. And I think year in, year out, there's a problem. But now I think we need to find a permanent solution to this problem.
And the special advisor to the governor of Jigawa State on flood and climate, Hamza Adejia, joins me to discuss this latest issue in Jigawa State. Thank you for joining us at this time. About 500 households expected to be at risk of flooding. How prepared is the state government for this?
Thank you very much for being with you at this moment. As you are aware, Jigawa State is among the listed states as predicted by Nigerian Meteorological Agency on the 2025 flood prediction. And indeed, the government of Jigawa State, under the able leadership of His Excellency the Governor, Madam Umar the FCA, has committed fully toward addressing the menace of both flash flooding and the river flooding across the state. His Excellency constituted a technical committee on mitigation of flood across the state in order to supervise, analyze, and conduct a survey across the state to identify all critical areas that require intervention to address the effect of flooding in Jigawa State. The issue to do with Jigawa Malamadori incidents of flash flooding recently, where His Excellency visited the area by himself to assess the extent of the damage and instructed the technical team to do a survey to find out the lasting solution for the flash flooding in Malamadori and its environs. Really, the exercise has been done, so the engineers take a thorough survey and the see where the river, the flood can be taken away to provide hydraulic structures through construction drainage with linkages, and to provide extension that retention pond within the outside of the city of Malamadori in order to minimize the effect of continuous perennial flooding within the Malamadori axis. So the design and of course the feasibility study and the design has been made, and His Excellency promised to bring the lasting solution of that menace in Malamadori. Not only Malamadori local government, but for the entire state at large. So when you consider the two different segments of flooding, which consists the flash flooding in the areas where there is no river, and that of the areas that are prone areas within the state, which are affected by the river flooding, the government of Jigawa State has committed in order to see how best it can minimize such effect through addressing the effect of flooding in order to boost the agriculture in Jigawa State. We consider one, the upland areas, the upstream axis, midstream, and indeed the downstream axis of the state. So the state has been divided into three portions of both upstream, midstream, and downstream. By considering the effect, only challenges across the three streams has been observed, and the actions is ongoing to minimize the effect. His Excellency provides the machineries in order to open up all the blockages especially issue to do with siltation in the river system, issue to do with diversions along the river channels, and issue to do with infestation of aquatic weeds such as typha, water hyacinths, and other aquatic weeds that block the river channels. In addition to all these interventions by the Jigawa state government, we also used to provide machineries in order to conduct flood protection dikes across the river side, so as to protect the communities from flooding every year. So this year, we have conducted almost about 132 kilometers of flood embankment within 48 different communities along the river axis, and we also dredged almost 130 kilometers within the river systems in order to allow the free flow.
I mean, the concern right now is whether some of these solutions that you've mentioned would actually be enough. We saw the International Organization for Migration's report, the flood report about Jigawa, saying about 42,603 households were affected as at last year. Some of these initiatives that you are mentioning, do you think it is really enough to manage the situation in Jigawa, especially as it has become something that is happening year to year?
Indeed, the intervention given by the government of Jigawa State is significantly reducing the effect of both flash flooding and indeed the river flooding. Despite the commitment made by His Excellency the Governor, the effort of providing amphibious excavators and other related heavy-duty equipment in order to work hard to address the effect of flooding by preventing the overflowing and managing the flow of the water within the river system, and indeed with the effort made under the Ministry of Environment in analyzing the urban and the rural settlements where the flash flooding are affecting and causing mass damages on destruction of houses and leading our people to become displaced peoples in the state. So this significant effort made by the government by providing more drainage system across the state, construction hydraulic structures in the affected areas really give more impact in reducing the menace of flooding in Jigawa State.
And what is the state government doing in terms of rebuilding, especially those who have lost their houses to this flooding? It's the rainy season already, and we've seen some of these issues around displacement and all of that in Jigawa. What's the state governor doing in terms of ensuring a long-term solution, especially for those who have lost their houses?
Thank you. Issue to do with a permanent solution made by the government of Jigawa State. It is part of the effort made by the Jigawa State government to look into the challenges along the river system entirely by having a good cordial relationship between the River Basin Authority that are the custodians of the dams located in Kano State of both Tegachalawa and the Bagauda dams, which are the major factors or causes of flooding in Jigawa State when it comes to the issue of river flooding. So we have a very good synergy and relationship with the River Basin Authority through discussions, meetings, and even visiting the river at the dam axis to supervise the integrity of the dams, observing the crest freeboard of the dams, and to analyze the inflow of the water inside the dams, and also to look into how to regulate the flow of the water within the year for irrigation purpose before the rain season and during the in season. What are the level of the inflow of the water, how to regulate it to minimize the effect in the downstream. So this is what we have been doing together with the River Basin Authority in order to regulate the flow of the water to avoid much devastating effect of flooding. As we discussed last year and we visited Tiga and Salawa last week. So we have analyzed the level of the meter above the sea level in the two dams and the mandatory release of 20 meter per cubic meter per second as mandatory releases, which significantly help toward minimizing the flow level of the water to the downstream axis, which is part of what caused the flooding in Jigawa State. But we are working hand in hand with them with very cordial understanding technically to see how we can minimize and regulate.
All right, all eyes on Jigawa State to ensure that some of these things that you've mentioned are actually put in place while this flooding situation is on. But that's a fine place to leave the conversation. And thank you for talking to us. Special Advisor to the Governor of Jigawa State on Flood and Climate, Hamza Adejia. Thank you for joining us on TVC News.
Thank you very much.